Welcome back to another episode of I Am Maria podcast. Today's conversation is about something we don't question enough. Not just who we are, but how much of that shaped by where we come from and whether we ever choose to expand beyond it. My guest today is someone who represents a different kind of leadership. Not loud, maybe sometimes with his laugh. Not performative, but grounded in trust, curiosity, and a genuine respect for people. Todd McGrew is a husband, a father, and a leader who has built his life around understanding others, learning how to listen, learning how to evolve, and how to create a space for people to be seen. And today, we're exploring what it really takes from growth beyond your perspective and lead with intention. Todd, I am so glad you're here today.
Thanks, Maria. Looking forward to it.
Let's start already because that was an intro about Todd, but we want to hear, who are you? Who is Todd McGrew?
It's a loaded question. I would say at the core of it, I'm a people person. I love interacting with people. I love talking with people, listening to people, having a good time with people, whether it be friends, family, loved ones, people in the community, at work. I'm someone who loves friendships and being able to, again, have that unique time with others to connect. And just create, moments, memories, and even, whenever you cross that threshold of personal into to work, I still find it very important that relationships at the core of everything is really what everyone ultimately desires, right? People long to connect, they long to understand people, and even though there may be moments, whether now, maybe in the past, in the future, where we may disagree, I think that it's always important to find opportunities where we can agree or find something that we can come to common ground on.
Definitely. I want to ask you right now about your toolbox because you speak about tools, I mean, how you ground yourself, and that is very important in life. There is a toolbox that is there with you when you need to take a decision or, these techniques, these resources that help you to move forward. What is your toolbox?
Yeah, I'd say first and foremost, I've made over the years. I wish I could say that I have been perfect in every single situation and I've never made mistakes. That's just not simply true. So with those, I'd say one of the most important learnings I learned at a very young age is learning how to be wrong, learning how to take feedback and understand that even though there may be a really tough situation or circumstance that you are presently in, to learn how to learn from that. I know it's easy to say that; it's a lot harder to do. But even whether it's again a personal relationship, professional, there's going to be moments that you're going to have to learn how to again just kind of brush off whatever it is that's being shared with you, and to take it, soak it in, and understand what you can do better moving forward. And I think that that's ultimately at the core of it is always looking at yourself in the mirror, taking a big deep breath, and reminding, hey, if life was easy, it would be easy for everyone, and it's just not. And so learning from those moments and remembering, hey, there could be things or circumstances that are driving, the situation at hand that maybe you don't see, maybe you don't understand, maybe you've never even asked about it. And, with that, it could be personal, oh gosh, you name it, right? Like someone's going through a hard day, but they just happen to unleash on you. And so learning how to, in that moment, understand they're not maybe mad at me per se, but maybe I'm just a person that's receiving this. So being able to sometimes take those blows, take a big deep breath, and be like, "Hey, is everything okay?" Like, again, so like being empathetic, being able to listen to the other people. I'd say another thing that I think that it's unique, that I have found a lot of power in is the very simple fact that every voice is important, always. And I think that with that, it's sometimes overlooked. Just because you're the loudest person in the room doesn't mean that you are the most smartest, doesn't mean that you're the best, doesn't mean that you're the leader in that situation. But with that, it's important to always look around a room and make sure that every voice is being heard. And I think that in that, we find the best not only of ourselves, but of others around us. And those are very simple tools. But I think that they're very impactful, and I think that they're very also important, just in the day to day and who we are and what we do in order to continually improve this world around us, and move forward.
Wow, how powerful. And really, what stays with me is the fact that you are very empathetic, and the fact that listening to everyone, it's important to you, but also important to you because of them, but because of the growth that you can have from it. That is amazing. The take a look at yourself in the mirror and take a big breath. That is everything we need to do. And to learn to be wrong. That's something that just stayed with me. And I'm like, I really want to learn that. And I want to teach that to my son now. And I hope that everybody listening here is taking all of that you need to, based on these powerful words that you just gave us, Todd. This is amazing.
Thank you.
Let's speak about decisions. Life is all about decisions. You have said no, yes, or you just have tried something new in life.
Mhm.
We're going to focus on one, two, or three decisions, important decisions that have led you to be the person that you are today and have the life that you have today.
Yeah, I'd say the probably the most important decision of all was this young gentleman who thought he had everything understanding in life in his early 20s. And I met my now wife, April. We've been married for 20 years. It'll be 20 years this coming October. Crazy to think it's been 20 years. But oh man, there's so many times, even when I joke with my wife and I tell her, I'm like, man, if I could go back in 20 years and tell that quote unquote man, again, when you're young, you're always like, I'm an adult. I'm ready to just, take life, grab the bull by the horns. But how many times I was wrong? How many times, I found myself thinking in a circumstance or situation like, this is how I should compose myself. This is how I should act. And it wasn't right. But I'd say still to that, being able to have her as my life partner and what we've been able to go through has just been a huge foundation to who I am today. And we've had, I would even I say we, it's not just me, we would consider moments, the lowest of lows, to other moments where it's the highest of highs, but just reminding, hey, we're in this together. So for me, I would say that was probably the biggest. Choosing that life partner, even at a young age when you don't have life figured out, I would say that that also shows how we've been able to grow together, both of us. Um, to not only compliment, but also to be that iron sharpening iron, where there's moments where we need that tough love. We need someone to, in a kind way, kind of wake you up or shake you out of the moment that you're in. Um, Second choice, I would say, is being a father. I know that some people are like, it's not a choice, but it is. And to that, I would say it's one thing to be a parent, it's one thing to have children, but it's another thing to be active in their lives, to be a part of their lives, to listen to them, to love on them. And with that, it's helped me understand, even though I say young, but they're making me an old man really quick. This year they will be 16, 13, and 9. And so I'm right now taking my 15-year-old through driver's ed. And as you can imagine, I love driving them to class and back because there's moments, where you're reminded, oh, this is what this means, or hey, did you do this, or hey, is your blinker on? In those moments, right? That it's funny because it's part of life, kind of looking at you and laughing. But in the moment, it's also like, wow, like this person trusts me, they love me, and we have this relationship. We've been able to build this bond over years. Um, and like they're comfortable and they're safe. And with that, some of our friends that we've been able to build life around for the last 20 years. Um, even though they're not my kids, in that moment, I still find myself at times being like, I would protect them. Like, I don't care what anybody says. Like, these people are important. So I would easily say like the father piece is definitely a huge piece of it. And then for the third, I would just say, my career. Not many people know that I actually went to theology school. So I actually have a bachelor's degree in theology, and it's candid moment. I hope this never, it'll probably get back, but it's still in the envelope that I got it in like a lifetime ago. And I know that's horrible because everyone grabs that and they put it in their, what is it, like their plaque certificate, whatever you call it, it's on the wall. And I've just never needed to do that because even though I have my bachelor's degree, um, I have just been in the QSR retail, just the hospitality space, my entire professional career. And it doesn't mean that I'm not helping people out, maybe if we're at a local church or community event or whatever else. I love being able to play the drums and doing all those things and being a part of the community. But just choosing the hospitality life has been an amazing choice because I'm able to help people every single day. And maybe it's not in the traditional sense that I thought it was going to be when I was a teenager in my young 20s, but the scope and the span of which I get to travel and listen to people, whether it's why they're in business or what they're going through, their hardships, and just being able to again be there with them in that moment, just to remind them that hey, at the core of all of this, we can go through the whether it's I can go back through my own career of chicken to retail with that bullseye dog a lifetime ago to Whoppers, which has definitely seen a huge resurgence as of late. To now, subs and just being able to listen to these people and to remind them that hey, at the core of all of it, it's people, and that we're here for one another. And so with that, I even speaking out loud, I'm seeing some common themes about people here, about my wife being a father, loving my kids, and then ultimately taking that love and that passion in the hospitality sector. And just doing my best again to meet with people, to find them where they're at, to understand their story, and I think that's also important when you build those relationships with franchisees or business partners is to understanding their why. Why are you here? Why this brand? Why now? Why is this where you're wanting to invest your life? And in those questions, sometimes you can build some amazing relationships and get some really cool stories that otherwise probably never would have seen the light of day. Um, Really long answer, but I hope that was able to go through those three key points for you there, Maria.
I love it. I love it. And I want to dig more into people because it's a passion. And that's what we are, and that's why we're here.
Right.
In a way, it tells me I am Maria, it's a community because we are people and we need to be better. Now, we speak about evolution. And with evolution, people is there. We're in constant evolution.
Mhm.
What's something you once believed about people that experience completely change for you?
Oh man, this is a real personal moment. So this needs to be taken in context because if not, it could be probably blown out of proportion. Um, but I was raised in a family where not to say there weren't tough moments, but I was definitely blessed with a father who supplied for us. We never really struggled meal to meal. I knew friends that did growing up. Um, my parents were at everything. Before helicopter parenting was a thing, I think my parents probably perfected this. But they were at everything, and it was it was so much to a point where everyone knew my dad. He was everyone's pop, like literally everyone. And even at his funeral a few years ago, like everyone was just like telling these stories about Pop and what Pop did for them, and it was such a huge emotional moment for me um, to see even sides of my own father that I had never seen, previously as his son. Even though we built, a really strong relationship in our adult years, but I'd say that's the context, right? So like building this family space, not really knowing hardship, quote unquote, in terms of what some people probably classify as hardship. Um, to where, eventually I'm able to meet my wife's family at a young age. And I noticed that they're not living in this big, nice house. They're not driving these big, fancy, nice cars. And so, again, in my own mindset, it's this whole like, well, what are they doing wrong? Like, why is life not treating them with all of these blessings and these riches and all of these things? Um, and there was an immediate assumption, right, of, well, they're not doing something or something is not right or whatever else. But again, assigning basically blame and ownership upon them. And then fast forward a few years after us, dating and getting married, I found myself, we did, in some hardship. And in those moments, those same people that, when I was younger, not having the full lens of the world, not having those experiences, not really experiencing hardship on my own self, I found myself needing assistance. I found myself needing love and support. And they were the first people to basically, and again, I'm using an analogy here, but they were the first people to basically, give me the clothes off their back and the food off their table. And it was in those moments that I learned really quick that judging a book by its cover, judging a person by what they wear, judging a person by the car they drive or where they live, or who they vote for is not a good assumption to make. But rather to again spend time with them and again get to know the heart of the person. And in those moments, that was the big light bulb experience for me. That when I can look back at my life, that was definitely a fork in the road where I made a decision to go in a different way. I understood then. I'm like, okay, there's a lot more than what meets the eye. And I did not mean to make a Transformers reference, but I guess I'm showing my 80s roots there. But it truly is, it really is, important. Um, and I felt like I needed to share that because it was a huge moment in my life of change and a big piece, I think, that truly has transformed the way I look at building relationships now, in terms of wanting to listen and hear people out and make sure that everyone has a voice.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. I think we all go through those moments, right? And that's when being very empathic with people is very important.
Mhm.
Not judging by the cover. I love that.
Right.
Todd, you lead with trust and openness. What has that cost you?
Oh man. Um, I'm not a micromanager. I like working with my team and giving them the green space to do what they need to do in order to drive results, drive success. But in the moment, over the years, I've come to learn that in that green space, in that place of trust, there can be people that see that as potentially a lack of leadership or a potential lack of knowing what's going on. And in those moments, you really have to double down on clear communication. Um, and unfortunately, you have to learn again from making those mistakes, where someone just assumes, oh, well, this isn't being done. Like, no, it is being done, but something may have not been efficiently communicated. So, learning in those moments, okay, let's take a step back. Let's understand that, hey, the green space is here is meant because I understand that you're building a relationship with this person, and that I don't want to micromanage how you do that. But at the end of the day, what we definitely need to be gauging ourselves upon or making sure that we're meeting is the end goal. And so maybe the means aren't always exactly the piece that, need all of the time, energy, attention. It's, hey, are we getting where we need to be getting? But in those moments, some people don't work well in that environment. They need someone to maybe tell them how to get there, what they need to do. And so in those moments, it's making sure that you level set with your team, you listen to your team, you understand that while this may be my leadership style, maybe I need to tailor it a little bit differently for everyone on the team so that while everyone has the green space to achieve their goals, everyone also understands that everyone is still pulling their weight or doing their part. Some people like to be more vocal. Some people like to document everything and be like, "Oh, I had this great meeting, and this is the outcome of it. What are you doing?" And so it's those sort of things, right? That you always have um, to be mindful of just because this may be my leadership style, maybe this is how I work best. It's not how others around you always work best. And so being able to, in those relationships, maybe those routine one-on-ones, and I don't mean like the teams or Zoom like we're on today, like maybe it's just coffee with someone or sitting down and just being able to again understand, okay, how are things going? What is it that I can do better for you? Because again, in those moments of transparency is where that trust is built, where clarity is definitely set precedent. But at the end of the day, I think sometimes it's just always important to remember that regardless of what we may be working on, that we're people, that we have things that come on in our personal lives that could push us in a different direction, whether emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, you name it. Um, you can't just shut that off and go to work or do whatever else. Like it's always there. And unfortunately for me, the tough moment of that reminder was the sudden loss of my dad in late 2023. And with that, I found myself for a while at work just not being fully present. And I still find myself checking out, just thinking about him or whatever else. And in those moments, it's like, oh gosh, what just happened? But people who don't understand that, people who don't know me, they might just think, well, Todd's not listening. Todd's not present in the moment. Todd doesn't care. That's not it, right? But my mind in that moment is maybe chasing a rabbit or doing something else. So again, sometimes people working with me can have those moments of saying, hey, Todd, are you with me? I'm like, oh, I'm sorry. I was chasing a rabbit. I was here, or I was thinking about this. You brought up a point about this situation that you're dealing with. And I was just remembering a moment where I was dealing with a similar situation and wanted to make sure that I could clearly communicate to you about the situation. But again, in all of that, just being able to be present, to listen, and to understand that at every moment, that just because I may lead a certain style or a certain way, doesn't mean that everyone in the room is going to be on the same page. And learning to be okay with that is not easy.
Learning to be okay with that and learning how to be wrong because this everything you just said here, it's so positive and I'm like, I love this. I really hope every leader will take the time, at least 5 minutes, to get to know their team, to get to know their why, to get to know how they are today, this month, this year, and know what tools to give them. That is a great leadership right there. And also, I believe that a great leader also knows how to be wrong, as you said, and knows that their team can be wrong. So, how do you stay open to being wrong?
Man, this was hard. Like I said, I'm not always right. There are wrong moments at every turn. We look back and go, "Wow, I could have done that better. So and so could have done this better." Um, I'd say you got to stay humble. It's so much, again, it's easier said than done, because at the core of humanity, we want to be successful. We want to be the highest person on that ladder. We want to be the highest paid. We want to be the most popular, the most professional. And people who say they don't, okay, fine, maybe not. But I'd say on a large scale, people just want to have, I'll call it gravitas, whatever else, right? They want to be able to they look at even celebrities or key authors or whoever else, your heroes, artists, musicians, philosophers, theologians. You could go through a long list of people and historical events. There's a reason why that person gravitates or resonates with you. And in those moments, it's just remembering, okay, well, they were also wrong at some point, right? Like no one's perfect. And so in that, being able to look back at yourself, and go, okay, like if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. And my wife was reminded me just a couple weeks ago, whenever I was like, yeah, there's 2 weeks of driving lessons. I got everything covered, and it was like, no, there's three. I'm like, no, I'm pretty sure there's two. And guess what, Maria? There's three. I was wrong, and I've been reminded of that a couple times. But in that again, it's sometimes it's learning to laugh at yourself, and I love humor. It's sort of how I deflect when I'm in a tough situation, and people who know me, who've worked with me, they know that I tend to lean towards that humor, and at times it can get me in trouble. Um, but again, I've learned over the years, over the decades, to learn how to kind of laugh at myself, and to understand that it's like, okay, like I could have done this better. I could have handled the situation better. But again, doing your best not to find yourself in that downward spiraling mentality of I'm a failure or I'm horrible or I'm not good enough. And just remembering we all make mistakes. We all have moments of imperfection, and that's fine. That's what makes us unique. But then not fixating on that, take again, looking in the mirror, taking that big deep breath and saying, okay, what can I do better moving forward and how do I do this? And sometimes it's admitting to people, hey, I made a mistake. I was wrong. You were right. Those are hard words to say. They're even harder words to swallow. But with that, I think sometimes in those moments when you can admit to others, I was wrong. What can we do to move forward? It breaks down those walls, it breaks down barriers, and sometimes it shows that bit of humility. It shows that humbleness. It shows people that, hey, they're willing to admit their faults. So maybe I'm willing to admit my faults. And it can really bring down the temperature in the room.
That is so nice. Being humble and learn to be how to be wrong. How easy. How easy. I love to dig a little more because sometimes we have a limited perspective in situations. So, have you ever realized you were the one with that limited perspective in a situation? And what did that teach you?
Oh, yes. So when I first came over to Burger King in 2012, again, I'm working with a lot of esteemed professionals, people who've been in the industry for a long time. And while I worked at Chick-fil-A when I was in high school and a little bit in college, it was a lifetime ago at this point. And so getting back into the scheme of things and visiting restaurants and trying to understand again what's working well, what's not working. There were peers that already had these skill sets. They had been, sharpening these skill sets for years. And and then fast forward a little bit, and there were more people coming in with these master's degrees from what everyone would know as these prestigious business colleges. And in that moment, I'm like, man, I took college algebra. Like that was all I needed for my degree. And I didn't even have to go to class. I probably shouldn't admit this, but at the very beginning of the semester, the professor was like, "Hey, whatever you get on the final is what you get in the class." And I'm like, college algebra was a breeze in high school. So why do I need to go to class all year long or all semester long if I know I can make an A or B on this exam? Fast forward a few months, I did. I got a B, and I never had to go to class. And I went and spoke with the professor a week before the final. I said, "Hey, I know that you haven't seen me all semester, but I'll be here for the test next week. You led us all to believe at the beginning of the semester that if we're not here, whatever we make on the final is the score. That's it. Like that was my math. And here I am at this global company going through data analytics, building PowerPoints and Excels and tools and pivot charts and all this other stuff. And I found myself real quick out of my league. And it was in that moment that I learned, okay, I need to learn how to Google some of this stuff because I am not keeping up with the room. But then building those relationships with others that had those skill sets, that had those strengths, and saying, "Hey, Maria, how did you do this? Like, how are you able to make this so quick? Because I want my time to be impactful, but I find myself wasting time on trying to build this dadgum pivot chart. Like, what is it that you do so that I can spend my time more wisely?" And so, with that, and even as I fast forward, right, it's the beauty of getting older is working with more and more people who have life experiences. Maybe they've lived in other countries, other continents. They know different lifestyles. They bring a different perspective to the table. Maybe it's an education. Maybe it's where they've come from. It's a strength that they just naturally were born with. But being able to, in those moments, just being like, okay, can you show me a little bit of like how you're able to do this, or can you tell me a little bit more about your perspective on this situation at hand? Because I find that in those moments, maybe it's not my strength, maybe it's not what I'm bringing to the table, but it's someone else's. And if they can help increase my skill set or my toolbox a little bit, like what you kind of led with earlier, then maybe that's something that can help me in some facet or manner. But at the end of the day, I have learned that, I'm not always right. I'm definitely making mistakes, but there's always a different approach to a situation. And just because I had a solution that worked previously doesn't mean it's the right one today. And it's always a really cool experience in life to have those moments where you can learn new approaches to a similar problem, and it's just as successful, maybe more so. But we tend to that habit of, well, this worked before, I'm just going to go ahead and jump right back to the solution when maybe that's not the solution we need anymore. And so trying to break those habits, but doing so by learning from others and being able to understand that, like, okay, maybe this isn't my strength. Maybe this is not what I'm bringing to the table right here and right now. But understanding, those toolboxes, those toolkits around me that can help me. But again, in those moments, it's being able to be humble and being able to listen and learn and engage and figure out how can we all bring those strengths to the table. I may have pivoted a little bit from the question there, and if so, I do apologize. But but no, that's sort of, a good example for myself. Um, because again, we're surrounded with business professionals that have MBAs, that have those degrees, that have those, maybe they came from a family of business people, they know people, they have these connections, and I just don't have those things. And so in those moments, it's learning to not fixate on, not having some of those things, but understanding in those moments, I'm in this room for a reason. Like, what is it that I can bring to the situation, and not fixate on the fact that I have gaps in these areas where they have strengths.
Totally. Everything you said was fantastic. It's believing in yourself. It's how finding ways to do it. I'm wondering here if that moment, or if you ever had a moment where your beliefs, because that right there could have been a belief that you just stayed and leave, right? Like I cannot do it. But have you ever had a moment where your belief were changed in a way that changed you and then everything around you?
Oh man, that's a big question. I'd like to think that there are many moments in life where we find ourselves in a similar situation. Um, whether it's at work, whether it's in personal beliefs, whether it's in those moments, I would dare say to the counter, there's probably moments now where humanity should be asking ourselves, what can I learn in this moment that we just brush off? Because there's so much information overload that we just take it as more information, whatever, I'll get back to it later. Where there could have been a moment that we had that opportunity to learn and understand, okay, like for an example, when I interviewed at Starbucks, I didn't like coffee. I'm just candid. I'm throwing it out there. I've told, it's not a secret. I've told people this, and it's a funny story that, whenever I walked into my interview and they asked me about coffee and everything else, and I'm like, I actually don't drink coffee. My wife drinks coffee, but I don't. And we're starting off the interview, and they have this set up. It's a coffee tasting, and they're pouring the coffee into all of the different cups. And again, it's a little small cup. Like, I'm just like, okay, cool, it's coffee, whatever else. It's a French press. This thing has scalding hot water in it. I don't know. I don't drink coffee. So before the interview ever kicks off, I grab this cup and basically just like slosh it into my mouth, burn my tongue. I'm in this moment of pain. Meanwhile, I'm sitting across the table from these strangers that I've never met before in my life, and I had a choice. I could either make a complete fool of myself, jumped up and be like, "Are y'all trying to kill me? What is, like? Oh my gosh, that is so hot." Instead, it was again that moment that I learned, okay, let's try to stay calm here. And they were very kind people. They were out, hey, are you okay? Like, that's really hot coffee. And I was like, yeah, it really is. Um, but even though it's like a weird moment of oh man, to be a fly on a wall, I'd love to go back, and if you had a time machine, I could watch myself in third person going through that moment because I still remember it. And I was like, what was I thinking? But in that moment, it was a big learning experience of, just because you think something is right in the moment, maybe you don't do it. Maybe you should wait and ask questions. And in terms of, a large, huge man, um, I'd say probably the one thing is, I was raised in very conservative East Texas. And with that, it was very much a raising of, you're either right or you're wrong. And it could be leaned into with religion, it could be anything else. But again, growing up in that circle, in that bubble, you grow up just walking into into the world, assuming, well, this is the way things are, this is the way it is, and if you believe differently than me, then you're wrong. And growing up, having those moments, being sharpened, having those moments of humility, falling those deepest of deeps, those lowest of lows, learning more about people around you and the heart that's behind them, and not necessarily, again, what they wear and who they are, or who they love, or who loves them, or whatever else, or what they believe, and being able to understand that we're all breathing the same air. We all drink the same water. Again, in essence, right? I know it's different, but at the same time, it's like we're all in this together, and being able to learn in that moment that, okay, maybe I was raised to think this, or I thought this at a certain age, but then growing up only to understand in that moment, there's more in common with all of us than we all really want to believe. And it's easy for us to pick out the differences and not fixate on the fact that we are all so similar and we're all on this same rock together. And I know that I'm just trying to figure out how to answer this question. It's such a big question. Um, but I think that in all of that, to sum it up, there's always moments that we look back on it ourselves and we can, find those different pinpoints of when we had the light bulb moment, when something changed, when the whole worldview pivoted or it changed. And again, we understand, okay, like now with this new learning and this new information, it's like looking through a new lens. Probably the best way to summarize it all is not having glasses and then having glasses. Like you didn't realize you couldn't see until you can see. And in that moment, it's like, wow, I didn't realize all these things. I just thought life around me was blurry. I had no idea. But sometimes that clarity gives so much an aha moment to where now you always ask yourself, why was I always okay looking at life through that or the lack of a lens? And now with this lens, everything is clearer. Um, I know I went in a lot of different directions there, but I'm hoping that I was able to maybe summarize that up for you.
No, that was amazing. And I really like to pick up on what you said. Growing up, it is different or can be different if we make something about it. Um, and I want to touch into love because to care about people, to be humble, to know that you can be wrong, to me, it means that you have so much love to you, for others. So I want to ask you, what does love mean to you today compared to what you were taught growing up?
Who, um, so I would say, like growing up, I never saw my parents fight and argue, never once. And fast forward, you get married, you have an argument, and you find yourself. I found myself in that moment being like, "Oh my gosh, is this it? Like that was a quick run. I guess we're over. Like you're not supposed to argue. Like what happened here?" Um, Obviously, that's part of life. But in the moment, I was incredibly lost. Love was something that was said, and not that like love is I was not shown love at a young age, but again, it's different than when you start to grow up, and now it's your decision, it's your life. Um, it's where you're moving in life, and probably the best thing that I could talk about, like you hear a lot about love when you're young. You hear a lot about, oh, you're supposed to love your neighbor, you're supposed to love others, you're supposed to love your parents, love your friends. But you don't fully understand what that means, I think, until you go through those hardships and those tough moments. And while I always heard love as a word, and I always understood that love was this feeling and love was this thing, fast forward 40 years, and the easiest way I can summarize it is, and I say this a lot, love is a verb. And Love is not just something you say, it's something you do. It's something you feel, it's something that grounds you. And whenever you say you love a person, the actions should match the words. And that's probably the easiest way to summarize it as I've gotten older to understand some of those things that I was taught growing up when when people ask about the fruits of labor or love, and it's like, well, what is it about works, is it about I'm kind of tying in some faith here stuff, but is it about faith, is it about love, is it about works, like what is it? Well, again, like it's really summed up in the fact that the love without any of those works is nothing. Like if I were to say I love my children, but I don't do anything for them, I don't spend any time with them, I don't feed them, I don't clothe them, I don't spend any time with them, I don't hug them, I don't love them, I don't listen to them, I don't ask them how they're feeling, like then what are they getting in return? And even if you look at that in your own family and then look at that at your neighbor, look at the people that are in a similar bubble than you, or maybe people that are across that aisle, and asking yourself, am I always being the person in the room that is demonstrating love? And that's hard, especially in the world that we live in when hate is thrown at us left and right all day, every day. And, you could point so many places and say, oh, we're taught to not like this person. We're taught to not like this thing. Or, but why? Like, why? Why are we taught that? When you look back at children sometimes and you see them love unconditionally these other children that look nothing like them, and they're like, oh, it's my brother, it's my sister, it's my friend. Like again, they see is the heart of the person. And I think that as we get older, we lose picture of that. And we start to assume, we start to think, we start to judge. So stepping away from that and reminding ourselves that love is truly what brings us together. Love is always stronger than hate, always has been, always will be. It's just unfortunate that hate is just it's just louder. I hate to say that, but I feel like it is. But love is stronger, and I think it's important for us to remember that.
I love that. I love that. What does it actually take to make someone feel truly seen or loved and not just heard?
I think sometimes it's truly listening to them. And it's with everything. It's not just with your ears, it's with your body language. It's through those moments of understanding and even connecting, of saying like, oh, Maria, you shared this with me. Maybe we're in a moment or an experience and I'm able to reconnect with, go, hey, this was that thing that you were talking about. And all of a sudden it's like you in this moment feel, oh man, I remember telling Todd this, but I had no idea he was actually paying attention. So kind of reconnecting on those items, re-speaking items that are shared with you can go a long way. And even in those moments, I think that this is a tough one because I think if we could solve all the hate in the world, then we here we go, let's go, let's just storm it, let's fix it all, Maria, let's go. But I think that at the end of it, it's a lot of it is just trying to be present. And sometimes as loud as I can be in moments, I find that being in a room and being quiet, and just trying to lean in and trying to listen and trying to make those other people understand that they matter and that they care. And I am truly here to listen, to learn, and to find what it is that we can, find common ground on can go a long way. But I think the key moment, or the key piece of this that sometimes gets overlooked is that sometimes others, they don't want it. Like they're in a situation in life where they have the tough shell, they have this moment of like, I don't want someone to love me, I don't want someone to listen, I don't want. And I think sometimes it's important for us to remember that in those moments it's not because there's something wrong with us, and maybe not something wrong with them. It's just right now in life it's tough, it's hard moments. But it doesn't mean to give up on that person. And I think that that's very important, because I think sometimes just because a situation is tough, it's easy to give up, it's easy to walk away, it's easy to pivot. And I'm preaching to myself right now because there's always those moments of hardship where you kind of want to look at it and go, it's not worth my time, effort, and energy. I'm going to move on to something else. Um, but maybe that time, effort, and energy is where you need to be. Maybe you were there for a reason because you need to be listening to this person and showing them love and showing them that they are important and that they do matter. And that's hard because, man, there's hardships around us every single day. So why would we then choose out of all of these things that we can do to be in that moment, to be in that hard spot, and to make the choice to stay? But who knows? Maybe that's in that moment what that person needs, and is even more so of a testament, to your love and being able to listen and be there for them.
That is so nice. But I wonder here, when do you feel most like yourself? And when do you feel the farthest from who you are?
Yeah. Man, probably the furthest I feel from who I am is when I'm in really tough situations. And I don't feel like I can find a way out because I like to think of myself as a problem solver. I like to think of myself as someone who, given a chance, like an escape room. I'm the kind of guy that's like looking at every single angle, trying to figure out like, I was a gamer growing up, and I still love, playing games with my kids. And it's like, I'm always the guy that's like, there's a secret door in here. I can feel it. Like, there's always a different path. There's always something going on. And in those moments where I feel like it's very fixated and it's either yes or no and there's no middle ground, sometimes I find that as a moment of like a lot of uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable for me because I like to think of new angles and different approaches to solve or get around something. Um, so when I feel like the room is stifled or there's different situations at hand, it's tough. When I'm me and I'm most like myself, it's got to be laughter. It's got to be fun. I love being able to cook and be there for my friends, family, and loved ones. Um, I love music. So when I'm jamming out to music or I'm playing the drums or whatever else, like in that moment, I feel like it's me and I'm able to just breathe and be and exist. And when I find myself, I'm traveling a whole lot and I'm not around my family, it starts to take a toll. You're not around those people. And so, there's times where I need to come home. I need to recharge. I need to be around my people. Last week we went on vacation and we were up in the middle of Arkansas and we didn't have a whole lot of reception. And while it's hard because you've got, work throwing messages all over the place, I wasn't always getting those dings. I wasn't always getting those push notifications. Excuse me. And it was in those moments maybe a little bit easier to find myself present with my family and to be in that moment. And yeah, I'd say yeah, I'm naturally a very humorous, fun-loving person, and so when I find myself in laughter, I find myself in those moments of happiness. I'm probably most likely like more true to my genuine self.
I will say you are a vitamin person. Doesn't matter how you're feeling. If you speak to Todd McGrew, you're gonna feel awesome after.
I I appreciate that. That's very kind of you.
Todd, looking back, would you change anything?
I've thought about that a lot, and I think there's moments that logically you think, hey, I'd want to change this because maybe it would have changed this outcome, but I genuinely love where I'm at in life. I really do. And the pros, the cons, the ups, the downs, the lefts, the rights. I don't think I would. I really don't. Are there mistakes that I wish I didn't make? Certainly. Are there moments that I wish I would have acted differently? Certainly. Um, but it's helped make me who I am, and it's helped me learn in those moments where I made a wrong choice or I made a wrong turn, not to do that again, or how to do something better in the future, or how to help people in the future. And I think that we're now the present and now moving forward. But man, I guess selfishly, the only thing I would probably change is I'd go back a few years and tell my dad to get checked up. Um, But aside from that, that's probably a very selfish thing to think, because the cancer that he was diagnosed with was one of those crazy aggressive kind of late stage things. And there are some beautiful moments between me and him during that window of his final weeks that I couldn't remember for about a year and a half. And now I look back with fondness. I look back at those moments where we were honest with each other. And yeah, it's horrible. I would never want to relive that. And I do wish he was still here. So selfishly speaking, I wish I still had him to call. I wish I could still talk to him, laugh with him, joke with him. But I'd say aside from that, I don't think honestly there's anything that I would look at and go, I want to change that because I understand uniquely that it's the path that's led me to where I'm at, and I'm okay with that.
That was so. I want to hug you. I send you a big hug right now.
Thanks.
Um, Todd, what would you like people listening to take away from this episode?
Man. Probably if I could encourage anyone with anything, it's it's that, we're in a world that people need second chances. People need to be heard. People need to feel that love. And I'd say in everything that we do and everything that we say and everywhere that we act, it's easy sometimes to move with that gut reaction, to say something maybe hurtful or to do something maybe hurtful, but to remember that, we truly are all in this together. And we are stronger when we're together, in many ways. And I think that if we are to constantly remember that, and the importance earlier, like I said, of just learning how, and I find myself not doing it at times, but learning how to take a look in the mirror and take that big deep breath and to calm down and to center yourself and to remind yourself why you're here. What is your goal? What is your mission, your vision, whatever you want to call it. Um, and make sure that you're always doing something right to help others, to help yourself. And that when you find yourself again, and after losing my dad, there are going to be moments that you're not okay. And that's just life. But identifying that you're not okay and finding what you can do differently moving forward is the difference. And with that, being transparent, talk to people, love people, listen to people. And I think maybe also the easiest core of all of it is just remember to laugh. I think at times the world can be heavy, and just remembering to laugh and just move on can be powerful.
That is so beautiful. Knowing that you're not okay, it's okay. And if you find a way, life will promise you that you will be okay.
You
Todd
might not see
McGrew,
it.
thank you for this conversation. I really needed it. And what stays with me is the idea that growth isn't always about becoming someone new. Sometimes it's about willing to see differently, to question what you were taught, to make a space for others, and to lead from curiosity and respect, and to listen to everyone. Because maybe that's the invitation for today. It's really simple. Stay open, stay human, and don't let where you started define how far you're willing to go. This is I Am Maria podcast with Todd McGrew. Thank you so much again for being here. And I
Thank you,
guess I'll see
Maria.
you
It's
next
been a
time.
pleasure.
Thank you, Todd.
Thank you.